Hi, my name is Jean Lawrence with Oracle, and I'm joined today by Nick Willets, the CEO of TM Forum. Thank you for joining me today. We'll talk a little bit about some of the major transformations we see going on in the communications industry. So thinking about 5G, we understand that there's huge potential, and some of the use cases and requirements probably have yet to even be dreamt up. So what do you advise your service provider members to think about in terms of their systems of record, their monetization and orchestration systems? What do those systems need to be able to do from an agility perspective in this 5G era?
So we've got to get away from the concept of monolithic stacks that are built just to say bill for mobile phone usage or for a certain amount of bandwidth that's being consumed. And the future systems that we think will underpin that level of flexibility, bearing in mind you've got to cope with both different services but also different charging and business models,
Right.
are going to have to be highly componentized. So it means really thinking about today's, what we would have traditionally looked at as monolithic OSS and BSS systems, grouping them in the categories you talk about, but then what we're doing in our open digital architecture is to break that down to individual building blocks.
Right.
And say those have to be autonomous building blocks that we can use together in different combinations. The boundaries with different partners or different customers may need to change. The only way you can achieve that is if we approach it with a standardized set of APIs, a common language,
Right.
and that's really what the TM Forum's here to do.
Right. So related to kind of the monolithic architectures, you have hundreds of CSPs who are members of the TM Forum. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in their IT operations. Where do you see cloud native as being right now? Do you think that's something that a lot of CSPs are looking to adopt more microservices instead of monolithic architectures? Where do you see the deployment of more DevOps kind of methodologies?
I don't meet any CIOs anymore who don't believe that those kind of capabilities are the ones they need. The challenge is both having the skills to actually build those capabilities, which is often a stretch, having access to the products and services in the market from the vendor community to actually deliver those truly componentized capabilities that are truly cloud native or serverless.
Right.
And then also having the ability to really migrate there gradually. The willingness is there. I think there is right now a sense of question over whether the solutions are there from the vendor community, whether the knowledge is there and the culture is ready within the operators to actually really embrace that.
So it takes the knowledge, the products, the culture, all coming together, to really embrace these new ways of working.
Yeah, and I think the big challenge for a lot of CSPs is, serverless technologies, containerization, these are not new concepts. They've been well proven in the IT world for a long time. The telecoms industry does not want to just simply spend the next 3 or 4 years catching up and then find it's again behind. So the key is how to actually introduce modern software development techniques, architectures and so on, and essentially leapfrog.
Right. So they can disrupt the disruptors.
Exactly, and to be competitive,
Yes.
I think that's the challenge. If we look at some of the companies that are admired from the telecom industry, be it Amazon, Google and others, it's the adaptability and capabilities they have. And a lot of the sort of reasons for not doing that, we think, come down to the technology stacks.
Right.
So we can talk about culture, we can talk about lots of other things that need to change.
Right.
So if we can find ways of safely doing that,
Right.
while respecting the fact we're in a regulated industry with a very good reputation, we don't want to harm for security and privacy,
Right.
and being reliable, then we can end up in a very good place.
Right, right. So it sounds like the key is making sure you have the reliability to deliver the business critical systems that you have now, as well as the flexibility to be agile and change really quickly. So
Exactly. And I think
challenge ahead of us.
Not getting caught up in thinking that what's worked or what we've admired in essentially the B2C revolution, which has been what's happening in the last 20 years, be it for media or for how we consume music video, how we communicate.
Right.
Don't just copy and paste those rules to the B2B world, because the B2B world is going to be placing a much higher expectation on service levels, on security, a lot of things that service providers have in their back pocket to make use of,
Right.
and that are on their side, but they've got to also be flexible and have the technology know-how.
Right. Thank you, Nick, for joining me today for this conversation. It was really interesting hearing your insights on the industry, and thank you for joining us today.